Okay, welcome to my living room this time. The rest of my family's taken over the rest of the house, so we've come to lurk in here. This one's going to be the multi-choice from the January 2019 mock. I'll do the short answers afterwards. So just in case, you don't need one section or the other. Okay, so if you've got your paper in front of you, then that's going to be most helpful, so you can see what it is that you've got. I've got one here that I can use as well. But if you got it, then obviously pause at various points, and I'll try and go through all of the answers that might be considered to be plausible. There's the whiteboard to help as well where we need it. So the first question, was this one. In the diagram below, total cost. TC is the total cost function of the firm. An output of 4 units. Average variable cost is what? So there were a couple of things that people tended to do here. The first thing that they tended to do was simply to work out total variable cost. The second thing they did is they worked out average total cost. So the first wrong answer that people tended to put was £400 divided by 4. That wouldn't be average variable cost, that would be average total cost. Because your total costs are 400 quid, 4 units, that gives you 100. The other thing that people tended to do is they said, if output's 0, there are still some costs of 200. Since costs are 400, that must mean that my fixed costs are £200 and my variable costs are £200. And then they put the answer, £200, but unfortunately that's total variable cost. So to find average variable cost, what you've got to do is you've got to do both of those stages. You've got to kind of go, well, look, costs are 400, but we know that when output's 0, I can never do this backwards. When output's 0, costs are still 200 quid, so they must be our fixed costs because they're occurring even if output's 0. Therefore, my variable costs are the gap there, between 400 and 200. My variable costs are 200 divided by 4 units. 200 over 4 is 50 quid. So that gives the right answer to that one as E. Question 2. Most people tended to get this one right, possibly because we've done it as a practice question. But the key point here, is that if you look at the question, what you can see, is that average revenue here is always below average cost. So the firm's price, is always below the cost per unit. So under no circumstances, can they make a profit. They're not making abnormal profit, they're not making normal profit. And what we know is that under those circumstances, because price is less than average cost, if they're making a loss, some firms are going to start leaving the market. So if you look at the other answers, which are more firms enter the industry, well, no one's going to want to come into this market because firms are loss-making. Firms should charge a higher price. Well, we know that they can't do that. We know that firms in perfect competition are price takers. If they try charging a higher price, then demand will fall to 0. Existing firms need to increase demand by reducing their prices. Again, they're just price takers. There's no point in reducing your price. You can already sell as many units as you want as price per year. And then all firms must reduce output. No, they're already profit maximizing. They're producing where MC equals MR, so they're doing the best that they can. But the easiest thing is just say, well, look, firms making a loss, therefore in the long run, firms are going to leave the market. If we have a look at question 3, this particular answer has a lot of calculations on it. I'll do this one on the board. What we know is that we know that the formula for price elasticity demand is the percentage change in demand divided by the percentage change in price. And what we know also is that price in this case has gone from 10 to 8. So price has fallen from 10 to 8. So it's not a 2% change, as some of you thought. It's minus 2 out of 10 times 100. So what we got is we got a 20% fall in price. Because price falls by 2 out of an original of 10, that's 20%. What you're told is that what you're also told is that expenditure rises from 2,000 to 2,080. Now, expenditure isn't demand. And we know that when price was £10, expenditure was 2,000. When price was £8, expenditure was 2080. So what we need is the quantity demanded. So what we can see here is that demand is 200 originally. Now, 80s into that and go to 60. That's right, So therefore, the percentage change in demand is plus 60 out of 200 times 100, which is plus 30%. Therefore, price elasticity demand is minus 1.5. There are lots of other answers that you could have put by working wrong things out. The most common thing to do was to do the formula the wrong way up, in which case you get minus 0.67. Some people went that the change in demand is 80 over a change in price of 2 and got the answer minus 40. I think the point is, that the other answers, all of the other numerical answers are there, they're not made up randomly. They're there reflecting the sorts of things that students tend to do wrong. So therefore, be careful of that. Question 4, almost everybody got this one right. What we can see is that whatever's happening in this economy, mineral extraction is doing badly. They're running out of resources. On the other hand, they've invested in agriculture. Therefore, the potential output of mineral extraction goes down, but the potential output of agriculture goes up. So that one's B. Some people put E, but E is showing actually a fall in your ability to produce agriculture, whereas they've invested in increasing its productivity. 5, actually, more people got this one wrong than I would have expected. So what it's talking about, is it's talking about the market for white rice, and it tells you that two things have happened. It tells you, firstly, there's a decrease in the price of brown rice, as a result of which, presumably, more people are going to buy brown rice, therefore there'll be a decrease in the demand for white rice. Most people got that right, but there's also an increase in the sales tax on white rice. What that's going to do, therefore, is it's going to drive up the marginal cost of white rice, or it's going to decrease supply. And for some reason, what people seem to do is they didn't, they kind of went mad, and they said that a movement down is a decrease in supply. Remember that's not true. Remember, supply is measured here. A reduction in supply will take you to S2, or better, to think of it as an increase in tax. Drives up the marginal cost. Demand falls, so we're going to end up going from some point like A to somewhere over to the left with both a reduction in demand and a reduction in supply, which takes us to point X on the diagram, and we should be able to see. The most common wrong answer was Z, so people just aren't understanding what an increase or a decrease in supply means. Question 6, this was generally got right. So what we've done is we've increased interest payments. The firm has increased its, the Bank of England has increased interest rates, or the banks increased interest rates. So is that going to affect marginal cost? Is that going to affect the cost, the additional cost of making that pen? The answer is no. It just, the cost of this pen is completely unaffected. It just affects the firm's background costs, its fixed costs, in other words. On the other hand, overall, the firm's costs are higher than they were. So the marginal cost is unaffected, which is the only possible answer, and average cost increases. So the right answer is C. So the point is that marginal costs are variable costs, whereas interest payments are a fixed cost. Okay, question 7. Most people got this one right. So there's a big increase in consumption, so obviously unemployment's going to go down and inflation is likely to go up, and everybody got pretty much that one. Where people tended to get wrong was with the current account. What's happening is that more people are spending money in the UK economy, so consumption is rising, as a result of which some of that money is going to be spent on imports. So therefore, the current account of the balance of payment is going to get worse. On the other hand, if we're all spending more money, that's going to be good for that's going to be good for the government. If more people are spending, unemployment's going to go down. More VAT is going to be paid, and because unemployment's going down, more people will be paying income tax, and the government will have to spend less on benefits, so the budget should be improved. Therefore, the right answer for that one is D. A is probably the hardest. Is probably the hardest question on the paper, and this is the sort of question that they do quite like to set. It's a data interpretation question, and what we can see is this is Greece's economic growth. And what we can see is that for the first hell of a lot of quarters there, GDP is falling. And it's falling every single quarter. So for the whole of this period here, GDP is going down, 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 up, 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 down, down. so lots of popular answers were So the answer to this one, this person put as B. GDP is highest in the second quarter of 2015. That's quite tempting. Because there have been some small periods of growth. Between 2014 and 2015, but there's no way that outweighs all this economic apocalypse here. So the answer is perfectly simple, which is that Greece's GDP is a hell of a lot lower now, than it was at the start of the period. Therefore, the right answer, is actually E. GDP in total was highest at the start of the period. What's happened, basically, if I was to draw it out, what's happened to GDP, is that, it's dropped like that, like a stone. Then it's dropped a bit more slowly. It goes up a little bit, and then it starts going down again. So right at the start of the period, that's when GDP was at its highest level. Okay. Question 9 is a simple one. Short-run aggregate supply. Short-run aggregate supply is based on costs. So what you're looking for is something that increases firms' costs. The answer is an increase in wages. Simple as that. Marginal cost goes up, therefore the short-run aggregate supply function shifts vertically. Question 10. So 10's quite tricky. What it's saying is as price goes up, following an increase in production costs. So what we got that type of story there. Which of the following is going to go up? What we know is that demand is marginal utility. And we know that marginal utility is measured here. So at point B, rather than point A, marginal utility is actually higher than it was. Because you've got fewer units, the value that you put on an additional one is actually higher than it would otherwise have been. That's quite tricky. But some of you did get it. So in other words, if you only have a very small number of units, your marginal utility tends to be quite high. As you have more and more units, your marginal utility falls, until eventually at that point there, you get no further satisfaction from consuming. But anyway, at a lower level of demand, your marginal utility tends to be higher. Question 11. If the central bank reverses its policy of QE, so what it does is it sells bonds onto the market. What's going to happen? So the government sells bonds, as a result of which people have to pay for them using money in banks. Therefore there's a decrease in the money supply. What's happening is so the way QE works is the government buys bonds. The central bank buys bonds and swaps them for cash, so the money supply goes up. Here we're selling bonds and money's been reduced from circulation. So the right answer is D. I think a couple of you got, I mean, perhaps that's not, I think a couple of you said the money supply is going to go down, but D is by far and away the closest answer to what's going to be, right. It sounds like a crazy cat. There he is. Right then. So diagram 12. So question 12 is fairly straightforward. So it's just asking you to work out producer surplus. Producer surplus is the bottom box. So what you've got is you've got the equilibrium price is 50 and the intercept is 20. So that gives us £30. The equilibrium number of units is 300, and to work out the area of the triangle we divide by 2. So that gives you £4,500. That gives you £4,500. As you saw from this one, the most common thing to do is work out consumer surplus. This one's I think most people got question 13 right. So it's just a question of working out. You're told what aggregate demand is, and you're told what all the components apart from imports are. So when you take them away, you get 200. So it's aggregate demand is 800 plus 400 is 12, plus government spending is 15, plus exports is 1, which is 16. AD is 14, so therefore imports are 200 because that's what we deduct. 14 is another tricky one. So with what do we associate a prolonged period of deflation? So deflation means that prices are falling. So the problem with deflation then is that if you've borrowed money, the real value of your debt is going to go up. So usually Yeah, and I think this question is referring to demand deflation particularly. Yeah, so it's once inflation is sustained, it tends to be this sort of steady reduction in demand. So it tends not to be associated with inflation. The real value of your debt's going up. So you borrowed money, inflation wipes out the real value of that debt. Yeah, but when there's deflation, you borrowed a certain amount of money. Yeah, but what's happening is the prices are falling all the time in real terms. Yeah, the value of that's greater. Yeah, what's actually going on is that real interest rates are going up. The real interest rate is the difference between it's your nominal interest rate minus inflation. So if your interest rate was 3%, but inflation was 4%, your real interest rate would be minus 1%, yeah, because you're getting 3% from the bank, prices are rising by 4% a year, that's bad news. On the other hand, suppose that your nominal interest rate was 3% and inflation was 0, well, now you'd be getting a real interest rate of 3%. But suppose, wife's just trod on the cat, yeah, suppose that nominal interest rates are 3% and prices are falling by 2% every year, well, in reality, you're now getting 5% because you're getting plus 3% from the bank and prices are 2% lower than they were at the start of the year. Yeah, so during a prolonged period of inflation, real interest rates tend to rise. Next one is a very simple question. The substitution and income effects of a price change are associated with what? It's associated with a normal demand curve. Yeah, so when price goes down, you buy more for two reasons. Firstly, in real terms, you've got more money. Yeah, if the price of a BMW goes down, well, if you buy it, you've got more spare money that you could buy another BMW with. That's the income effect. The substitution effect is if the price of BMW goes down, then you're more likely to buy that rather than a Mercedes. Yeah, so that's just a knowledge-based question. 16, which one of the following would be most likely to shift AD and AS to the right? The right answer is A. So if income tax goes down, what that means is that firstly, obviously, you've got more disposable income. You've got more income after tax. But secondly, it creates incentives to work. So firstly, there'll be more demand because people have more money, and secondly, there's more incentive for people to join the workforce. So therefore, that means we've got a greater working population, so the potential output of the economy will be greater. So that one's A. 17, following a sharp depreciation of the currency, all the following are likely except. I mean, this is a terms of trade question. So terms of trade comes up quite a lot, because it's something that students generally don't understand. So the terms of trade, is the index of the price of exports divided by the index of the price of imports. And the way we've always explained this is if we look at somewhere like Kazakhstan, then what they want at least, is for the price of oil that they sell to be high, so that each barrel of oil generates lots of dollars for them. Suppose your exchange rate goes down, what we know is that the impact of that is a decrease in the price of exports and an increase in the price of imports. Therefore, from Kazakhstan's point of view, the price of everything, when the tenge falls, the price of everything that they buy is going up. Their terms of trade have worsened. So therefore, whereas the other ones, we would expect the competitive exports to go up. In theory, we would expect the trade balance to improve. Import prices are going to go up, and because the trade balance improves, we would expect an improvement in aggregate demand. 18, God's sake, how many times? It's like, just find the right bloody triangle. The right one is, the triangle is always the gap between social costs and social benefit. So what you've got is you've got marginal social benefits there. You've got marginal private benefit there, so this is some sort of merit good like education, and then we've got marginal private cost equals marginal social cost. So that's supply and that's demand. It's even written on. So the market equilibrium is there, the socially optimal level is there. So what we've got to say is what's wrong with these units. The cheating solution is you just mark up from the market equilibrium, but the thinking explanation is to say, well, look, that's the marginal social cost of those units. That would have been the marginal social benefit, but we haven't got them, therefore that's the welfare loss. So therefore the right answer is A. So if you put B, 19 is quite a good question. The point is that what you've got both an increase in supply and an increase in demand. And as you can see here, what we can be sure about, if you've got more supply and more demand, what you can be sure about is that quantity is going to be higher. But what we don't know, so demand goes up, D1 goes to D2,
supply goes up, S1 goes to S2. We're bound to end up with an equilibrium, where the quantity is to the right of the original one. But what we don't know is what happens to price. If supply only increases by that much, price is a bit higher. That much, price stays the same. That much, price goes down. So we can only be certain, that quantity goes up, and we don't know what happens to price, and that makes the right answer E. And lastly, question 20. This wasn't a great question. What we can clearly see is that we do have economies of scale. So therefore it's either A, B, or E. It can't be E, because in the short run you can't have diseconomies of scale because your scale stays the same. That leaves you with either A or B. Increasing returns to the variable factor and diminishing returns to the variable factor. But actually, of course, we've got both. So in the end, we had to accept either A or B. The intended answer was B, which is this idea that after a bit, you get diminishing returns setting in fairly quickly, but some people kind of go, well, no, we've got increasing returns to start with, so we had to accept it. So that's that. I'll upload this, and then I'll do the short answers in a minute.